All right, this should take less than 5 minutes. Let's just finish up the last little part. So, our big topics, the Protestant Reformation. Now we're going to focus on what is the English Reformation, um, which is King Henry VIII. Okay, over there, King of England. You may be familiar with him because he's the guy that had 6 wives, not at one time. He married 6 different times to these 6 women. And there's a fun little rhyme that we go over to remember them. It is divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. He beheaded 2 of his wives, divorced 2 of them. One of them died due to childbirth complications. She didn't die immediately after she gave birth, but not soon after, or excuse me, not terribly long after. I'm sorry. And then Catherine Parr, his last wife, he died before he was able to do anything to her. And this is super fun to learn about. I hate that we're not together because it's not anything that needs like great importance to focus on, but it's just a really, really fun thing in history. So what happened? King Henry VIII, if you have ever heard of him, and I'm sorry I don't have a picture pulled up of him. Let me pull his image up really quickly so you can see what a handsome devil he was. Not. But here he is. There's King Henry VIII. He was the King of England, and he was sick and tired of paying money to the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church owned a ton of land in England, and he had to pay taxes to the church, etc., etc. And he saw what Martin Luther did in Europe by creating his, own church. And Henry had the same idea. Now, not only was Henry motivated to start his own church because of money, but the other reason he was motivated is because his first wife was a woman named Catherine of Aragon. Catherine was married to Henry's brother, and Henry's brother died. And Henry's dad made him marry his brother's widow. And Henry saw this marriage as cursed. They were only able to have one child. Her name was Mary. And after that, Catherine could not have any other children. And in this day and age, guess what Henry wanted more than anything? He wanted a son because he wanted a boy to be able to take the throne after him. So since Catherine couldn't have any more kids, he wanted to divorce her. But in the Catholic Church, divorce is illegal. You cannot get divorced. You can get a marriage annulled, but you cannot get a divorce. And the Pope was unwilling to annul his marriage. Now, he had fallen in love with this little thing right here named Anne Boleyn, and Anne Boleyn had promised him that if he got rid of Catherine, she would marry him and give him a son. So Henry starts his own church literally so he can divorce his wife. And that is the Church of England, called the Anglican Church, and here in these states it is called the Episcopal Church. So Henry starts a church literally so he can divorce his wife. And marry Anne Boleyn. And fun fact, marries Anne Boleyn, guess what? Anne's got a daughter. And then has several other miscarriages, is unable to produce a son. And so Henry accuses her of adultery, which is cheating on him, and marries Jane Seymour. And Jane Seymour gives Henry a boy, and his name is Edward. But then she dies from childbirth complications. And Henry is so distraught that his dying wish is to be buried beside his favorite wife, who is Jane Seymour, because she gave him a boy. Anne of Cleves he immediately divorces because he agrees to marry her off seeing her a painting of her, and when he sees her in person he thinks she's hideous, and so he goes through with the wedding but then divorces her immediately after. And then Catherine Howard is like 14 when she freaking marries him, and he's like, in his late 40s by that point, and it's disgusting. And he has her beheaded for cheating on him, supposedly. And then lastly, he marries her and she survives. So there's your Henry VIII story there. Please know, bottom line, Henry creates his own church, the Church of England, so he can have more power and more authority than the Pope. And he passes an act called the Act of Supremacy, which says he is the supreme head of the Church of England, the Anglican Church. and he will stay in power. So he does not have to pay money to the Catholic Church. He seizes all of the land that the Catholic Church owns in England, and then he gets to do whatever he wants, like divorce wives or whatever. The Anglican Church, the Episcopal Church, is pretty much the exact same as the Catholic Church, only a few minor changes, one of which is you can get a divorce. If we were together during, for the year, we would go over his kids in great detail. Mary, Elizabeth, and Edward are the three. Mary from his first wife, Elizabeth from the second wife, and Edward from the third wife. Edward, the boy, dies very young. He's a sickly child, and he'll die very young. Mary, when she rules, will be known as Bloody Mary because she actually tries to turn England back to Catholicism and has 300 Protestants killed for being heretics. And they are all burned alive like you do with a heretic. And her rule is not good at all. But out of Henry's line comes probably one of the most famous rulers ever to rule England, and that is Queen Elizabeth I. And she is the last Tudor to rule, Tudor, which is Henry's family. And she does a fabulous job, to the point where, the current Queen of England is named for her. She's Elizabeth II. She's named for this Queen Elizabeth. And this Queen Elizabeth is known as the Virgin Queen because she never gets married. She never has kids. And the reason why is because if she got married, a man would have more power than her. So she stays single, so she can keep power for herself. And she, never has kids because of that. The state of Virginia is named for her, which here in the States, because she was the Virgin Queen, Virginia. That's why it's named that way. But yeah, so there you go. That's the very, very short story of Henry VIII. I wish I could tell you even more. If you are intrigued or interested, definitely look stuff up on your own. It's super fun. One of my most favorite things in history to talk about. So Protestant Reformation, English Reformation. English Reformation is part of the Protestant Reformation, but bottom line, the English Reformation happened so Henry can divorce his wife, get a son, and stop paying money to the Catholic Church. Martin Luther actually had problems with the morality of the Catholic Church. His method and motivation was not about greed. All right, thanks so much. Let me know if you got questions.